Hey, what's going on, guys? Shane here from Rocket Parrot Sound. I know a lot of you guys are actually beginners or might not have the best handle on Serum, so I'm making this video for you. I'm going to be showing you exactly what you need to know in Serum, none of the extra BS or the advanced settings that you don't need to know when you're starting. Instead, what I'm going to be showing you today is the highly actionable structure that every producer uses and how you can actually get started with Serum today. Okay, so this is exactly what you need. I wish I had this tutorial years ago when I first started, and the stuff that's out there right now isn't too good. There's a lot of fluff, a lot of things that you don't need to know, but today I'm just showing you the basics, the fundamentals of exactly what I wish I knew a few years ago. So before we jump into this beautiful tutorial, my name is Shane from Rocket Parrot Sound. Basically, I put out Serum tutorials every single week. So once you get this stuff down, go ahead and move on to the next tutorials where we're going to be covering some more advanced stuff and recreating some amazing basses that you hear in the most popular songs in EDM. So that's exactly what you're going to want to do next. I'm also going to be showing you some other tricks that you guys can do to really cut your learning curve towards the end of the video. Anyways, let's just go ahead and jump straight into the tutorial here. So looking at Xfer Serum, at first it's a little bit daunting, but guys, don't be overwhelmed. I'm just going to be showing you only what you need because there's a lot of extra knobs here that I don't even use that much, and a lot of producers don't really touch them because they're not significant to the style of music that I make, or they're just really, they don't do much. So anyways, let's just go ahead and get started. Taking a look, there's a few different panels, okay? Oscillators, there's the effects, matrix global, there's the wavetable editor panel, we have the modulations panel down here. But taking directly, just looking, all right, this is our first starting panel. This is the most important because this is where all of our sound's going to be generated from. We have a 4 oscillator setup. We have sub oscillator, which is just a series of basic waveforms, sine. Oh, I'm sorry, I got to turn off oscillator A. Sine, triangle, sawtooth, square. And then we have the noise. Okay, these are just a series of noises, and the cool thing about Serum is here we actually have the ability to load in our own noises, so we don't have to just use the standard noises like this. Instead, we could go ahead and import our own, like like a vocal or something like that. So very cool effects here, and of course we could go ahead and increase the pitch. All right, these are just the basic settings, and that will change the color of the noise that you're working with. We could change it to a one shot, so it just plays once, or we could go ahead and turn on keyboard tracking. So whenever you guys see this little button here, this basically means that whatever note that you press on the keyboard, the pitch of that will follow. So for an example, let me put this to some white noise because I know you can't even hear that noise that I just tried playing, but let's turn this up. As you can see, we have pitch tracking turned on, so let's press another note, go up another octave, and we're not even moving the pitch. Instead, Serum is doing that internally. So very powerful techniques here, and then we could turn off one shot so it'll just keep repeating itself. Anyways, let's go into our oscillator A and oscillator B, because these right here are the most powerful. These are really what we're working with. These are the foundations of most sounds. Like 95% of the sounds that I make in Serum, oscillator A and oscillator B are going to be used. So oscillator A and oscillator B are both the same thing, okay? So we don't even need to focus on one or the other. Just we're going to be sticking with A though. Basically, this is the most beautiful feature ever created. We have the ability to add in any of our own wavetables. We can use the stock Serum wavetables, like for example Basic Mini, and guys, all a wavetable is if we go in here, it's just a sequence of different individual waveforms. So press here, different waveform, right? And that's all it is. It's just a different sequence of waveforms. So here we can just go ahead and go and cycle through the different waveforms in this whole different wavetable. So the wavetable is just a collection of waveforms. That's all you need to know. And the wavetable position is what controls what specific waveform we're going to be landing on in this sequence. Okay, so very simple. And here the unison is just the amount of voices. So the more voices that we introduce into the sound, the more stereo width. Okay, and that's really all you need. That's all you really need to know. We could detune it and etc. But a very basic feature here. Okay, so that's all we do with that. But it gets even crazier because Steve Duda from Xfer Records, absolute beauty of a man, what he ended up doing was introducing all these amazing features that we could put to directly impact this waveform. So for an example, if we turn on sync, and all you have to do is click the waveform, okay, to see the overall wavetable position, or just the waveform itself. And this is powerful because now we can see exactly what this, it's called the warp selection. We could go ahead and choose whatever effect here. We could see exactly how it's impacting the sound. So the sync is just increasing the amount of cycles per window of the waveform here. So very cool. We have a lot of different other effects. We can mirror the waveform, okay, just mirroring it at different positions or different phases. And then this right here is something that basically just about every producer in the scene is using. This is FM from B. If you watch my tutorials, just about every tutorial we're using FM from B or FM from another oscillator. So FM is frequency modulation, and this allows us to go ahead and create some really crazy effects. So if I just go ahead and choose, you know, a sawtooth wave, or a, where are you? Sawtooth waveform, and we turn down the level of oscillator B, we start to turn up the FM, and then we turn up the octave, we start to create these really, really crazy inharmonic and harmonic effects, and that is really the basis of creating some really crazy stuff, especially in dubstep, trap, etc. But yeah, that's really it for the oscillator section. Nothing too crazy. We have the pitch controls up here, and that is really all you need to know for actually generating the sounds. Now, of course, we do have our filter. We have our filter selection, and once again, like I said, Steve Duda, absolutely beauty of a man. He's the one that created the Serum plugin. He introduced so many fantastic filters. So not only do we have the basics here, like the low passes, the high passes, the bands, the notches, etc., etc., which I'm not going to go through those because those are just the basics, okay? That's for another tutorial. But then we have multis, which the multis are just combinations. So we have like a low pass, high pass filter. So they're the combinations. And so for example, if we were to choose that, we can modulate the frequency here, which is modulating the high pass, and the cutoff is just modulating the low pass. So we have a combination of the two. And then we have flanges, which are just really, really interesting sounding. Okay, these are really unique stuff. And then we have the miscellaneous, which are also just very unique filtering techniques here, and phenomenal. Like I said, we have the pitch tracking. Now the pitch tracking here will follow whatever note that we press. It will move the cutoff corresponding with it. So when we have tonal filters like the flanges, that is perfect because whatever note that we press, the cutoff is going to move with it. So we have some really, really cool ways of keeping the same pitch or the same tone with the filter as the actual note as we move across the keyboard. Okay, so that's really it for the oscillator panel. Now we're going to get into the modulation panel because we have all these knobs, right? But the question is, how do we add movement into the sound? And that's what we're going to be doing here. Now we have all these different modulators. We have macros, which we can do automation with. We have the mod wheel, which we just go ahead and put onto, for example, FM from B, and then we can move this wheel and change the value. And then we have envelopes, LFOs, and then the velocity trigger, and then the note trigger. So velocity is whatever velocity we have the note set at, and that's basically internal in your DAW. And then the note is basically whatever note that we press on the keyboard, kind of similar to pitch tracking. It's going to follow, it's going to move the value that, you know, we have modulated. So let me show you what these do. Okay, basically we're just going to be focusing on envelopes and LFOs. Macros are super simple. They do the same thing, but the only difference is we control the value by just moving the knob. So if we put on our envelope, number one, all we do is we take this and we drag it and we put it onto whatever knob that we want. We can literally modulate anything in Serum here. And basically it's going to follow whatever shape that we have here. So for an example, envelope 1 will start off right here, and then it's going to move as it progresses to about 1 second here. It's going to hit this peak and then just plateau right there. Now, one thing to keep in mind here, guys, is envelope 1 actually automatically controls the master volume. So in general, I don't like to put things on, I don't like to mess around with envelope 1. Instead, envelope 2, we could go ahead and mess around with, because it's not actually controlling anything until we put it on a parameter. Okay, so very cool stuff here. The envelopes are super basic. We just control the attack, the decay, and then sustain. So we could have it go like, let me put this on a sound you can actually hear. And as you can see, it just goes all the way up and it follows this exact shape, just cycling through the waveform. All right, so very cool on there. And now this is one of the features that you're really gonna see in my tutorials, and these are the LFOs, or the low frequency oscillators. These, we have complete control over just kind of creating whatever shapes that we want. And the cool thing about this is if we hold the Alt key while we move our shapes, we can actually snap it to the grid. Now that's a fun little trick that I like to do. And guys, we could just adjust the rate, and basically very similar to the envelope, what's gonna be happening is whatever shape that we create, the sound is gonna be following that. And all we do is we stick it onto a knob, and then by pressing this little handle here, we can move it up or down. All right, so we could do that to anything. We could do it in the filter. Okay, there's a lot that we can do this with. Now going in here, we can actually save our own LFO shapes, like, okay, nothing too crazy right there, but you know what I mean. We could do that, or here's a nice little trick. We could put this on envelope, which basically means it's going to hang and just sustain at this last value here. So this is at 0, so ready? So after it completes the cycle, it just hangs off and sustains at that last area. And now we have off, which basically just means it's not gonna re-trigger every time we press a note. Instead, it's gonna follow the timing in your digital audio workstation. So just like that. And then of course we have the basic voicing. Okay, we could make it so we just have one note playing and turn on portamento. So the note starts going all crazy, but let's just go ahead and I'm going to initialize the patch, which we just do init preset, which basically just means initialize preset. And now we go back to the start. So I can show you exactly what's going on in the effects section. Okay, so the effects section here is absolutely beautiful. We have the most effects that I have ever seen built into a synthesizer in my life. Basically, we have the hyper / dimension, we have distortion, flanger, blah, blah, blah. And I'll be going through what I normally use and then ones you don't necessarily have to use. But here's the thing about Serum. These effects, each one of them is so powerful. I end up using majority of them because there's just so many combinations that you could do that just create some really crazy stuff. So for example, hyper and dimension. I almost always use these. Not necessarily the hyper, but dimension, because this is a dimension expander. A lot of you guys are coming from Native Instruments Massive plugin, and this is just like the dimension expander. We put down a low size and a high mix, and we expand the stereo width. Now distortion, you know, basic distortion stuff, turn up the drive. And then of course, we can actually filter the distortion. And now this is insane, because now we're filtering just the frequencies that we want to be distorted, which is a really, really awesome feature. And then we have, you know, downsampling, all sorts of different distortion effects. Okay, nothing too crazy here. And now into the flanger, basic flanger settings. We can control the rate, and very similar to the flanger settings, we have the phaser. The phaser, this is something that I find myself using a lot. Not necessarily the flanger, I don't use that one too much, but instead the phaser really starts to create some really interesting effects here. So if we turn down the rate to 0 hertz, turn down the depth to 0, now turn the frequency down, we immediately create this effect like our sound is passing through a guitar amp. Now this is super powerful in dubstep tracks, a lot of that raunchy kind of basses, if you know what I mean, and not so much in other kinds of music, but guys, the phaser, you can do a lot with it. Now, next on the list, we have our chorus. The chorus is actually a super underused feature here. There's a lot that we can do with it. So for example, turning up the mix, you can't really hear too much, but guys, this is actually because we're using a low pass filter. We got to turn the frequency all the way up. Or if we press low pass filter, we can move it to a high pass filter. Okay, so very interesting stuff here. Turning up the feedback will of course just mess with how strong these different delays are. I'm not going to get into these, what each effect does, but I just want to show you, give you a quick overview of what they're actually how they're affecting the sound. So, then we have the basic delay. I don't need to do too much of that. Now, this is something that I think every single producer should know. This is the multi-band selection. So take a listen to the sawtooth waveform now. Okay, now let's press multi-band. And what happens here is a multi-band compressor is a super powerful OTT compressor, I believe. And basically what's happening is when we select multi-band, it basically compresses the sound and tries to figure out, all right, what frequencies here are lacking? Is there not that much low end here? And if there's not that much low end, it's going to try and compensate for that and start to bring out the low end. So it really kind of evens out the frequencies a little bit here in your sound. And this is a super powerful thing. Put this on a lot of my sounds because it really cleans up and just really makes a huge difference. Now we do have reverb, and nothing to really jump into here, just the basic reverb that you would find built into a synthesizer. And then we have EQ, which really powerful. Okay, we have the ability to modulate and change a few different what am I trying to say? Slopes here. Okay, so we can either make it go negative, positive, and yeah, it's really cool because we actually have the ability to do 2 of them. Now into the filter, we actually have the same filter settings as we have available as in here, except we can't turn on keyboard tracking. So if we were to do something like that, we'd have to do it manually. But like I said, we're just sticking to the basics, exactly what you need to know. And we have all sorts of really cool filtering effects in here. Okay, so that's it for the effects section. Nothing too out of the ordinary right now, but hopefully you get an idea of how everything is affecting the sounds. And now into the matrix. This is when people are like, okay, this is a little bit too much to handle, but guys, stick with me. The matrix section is nothing to kind of get too worried about because, guys, trust me, it is just the modulations. Okay, that is all it is. So when we stick on like our envelope 2, for an example, onto the wavetable position, here we have the complete ability to change the amount. So for an example, right now it's set to like 100%, right? Now let's put this to 40%. And now as you can see, the value now changed. So now we're going to like 41%. That's what we just said. And the really cool part about this is we could go ahead and jump on any of our modulations. So as you can see, we have all these different modulators that we didn't actually see before, like the noise oscillator. But the more advanced stuff, guys, we're not going to be getting into those. But we can manually choose whatever things that we want. And here we could go into the global and modulate the master amplitude or the master volume of the sound, which not that many people know you can actually do in Serum because you have to go through the matrix and do it. And just these global things are things you have to go through the matrix, and you could do all sorts of things like that. You know, nothing too crazy. And guys, one thing that you'll find too is if we go here, we can make the type go back and forth. So it goes from negative to positive. So it'll go. Oh, well, we do have this set to an envelope too. I'm sorry. Let's put this to an LFO. So you can see it going negative, positive, negative, positive. Or if we just go straight, it's just going to go from 0 to the value we initiated. So that is it for the matrix section. Nothing too crazy. Really, like, it looks daunting, but trust me, guys, you don't even need to look at a lot of this other stuff. Seriously, just focus on what you need. Now, the global settings, these are settings that you really don't need to touch too much, but they are some additional features that can be useful. For an example, we could have double click for typable values on controls. So if we go here, we could go ahead and say we want the wavetable position to be at like 144. Well, there's not 144 waveforms in this sequence, so we don't even, that didn't really work, but you know what I mean. If we go to the effects, I mean the matrix, we could choose the amount to like 100, and that'll max it out. All right, just some very basic stuff here. And guys, one thing that you will in fact need to know is if you're modulating the tuning, which we can do with the coarse pit here. These are like all the individual tuning values. We want to go into the global, make sure double click for typable values are on controls, and then we want to adjust the pitch tracking. Just move it up to like 450. Now we go into the matrix because, guys, it's a little bit weird in Serum. It doesn't necessarily adjust the same way that you would expect. Now what we do is we type in 12 ST, which means 12 semitones, which 12 semitones are in 1 octave. So we're just modulating this 1 octave up. Let me select the type to just go from 0 to the value we initiated. And just like that, we have a really easy way of modulating the pitch. Now guys, some more basic stuff that we have are in the menu settings, and you know, we could find more advanced things like render the oscillator A's warp, which is, remember I showed you, this is the warp selection, or we could do resample the whole sound, but like I said, don't even worry about those. Basically, we can load presets with this, or we could initialize the presets, initialize the modulations, which basically both of those mean set it down to 0, restart. So like, for example, boom, we just reset all of the modulations. We can rescan the folders on disk, which basically means if we load in different noises, it'll just refresh to find the noises that we just loaded in. So just some basic things here and there. And finally, if we go into the wavetable editor, this is just a more advanced section, but I don't want you guys to be frightened when you just go ahead and open it up, because here we can just go ahead and edit our waveform any way that we want. We can create all sort of processes on here, and we could actually type in a mathematical equation to plot our waveform, and that is really all it is here. Now guys, I hope that you found this helpful, but I'm not done just yet, because I want to tell you the most actionable ways that you can cut your learning curve in half with Serum, because Serum is such a powerful waveform, but there's a lot to be learned, okay? It took me a few years to get to the level I'm at right now. So the best way, I'm gonna say best ways plural, because these are multiple ways, are number one, to watch tutorials. So learn from other people. You know, tutorials are the best way, because you could just pull up any of my tutorials. Now we have like the most popular Serum tutorial channel on YouTube, so I highly suggest you check out my videos, because we recreate the most popular sounds heard in EDM. And now that's number one. Number two is analyzing Serum presets. Luckily for you, we have the list of the ultimate collection of free Serum presets. So down and below in the description, I linked a free link that you can get. You can get hundreds of Serum presets for free, and these are all tutorial presets. So you can go ahead and download the preset and follow along with the tutorial, or just go ahead and go in and see exactly what's going on in the preset. The best way that I found to increase my understanding of Serum is to actually take a look at how other people made their sounds and then see what's going on there. And I'm like, oh wow, okay, so if I were to modulate the LFO in this certain way onto the FM, it'll create this sound that I've never heard before. And that way you could really start to get people's knowledge into your own music, and you really start to pick that up on your own. So tutorials, checking out other people's presets. So if you guys want to learn Serum on a weekly basis, click that subscribe button down below, because I literally pump out Serum tutorials every single week. That means you're going to be able to learn how to make sounds like Skrillex, Getter, Flume, all of those awesome artists on a weekly basis. So without further ado, guys, I want to welcome you to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Shane from Rocket Powered Sound. I had a lot of fun doing this video, but I hope I will see your face on the channel more often, because I cannot wait to get into the sound design journey with you. And hopefully you'll become one of the Rocket Powered sound designers, because we are the new breed of sound design. My name is Shane. My job is to make your sound design amazing as efficiently as possible, and I will catch you in the next Serum tutorial.